today, a wide-ranging, exclusive, candid conversation with Vice President JD Vance. How he found his way back to faith through family, a journey he's recounting in a new book, plus his fraud crackdown in Minnesota and across the country, and what he makes of Governor Tim Walz trying to take a victory lap over yesterday's FBI raids at nearly 24 businesses. And this, in his first interview since the White House Correspondents Association dinner shooting, what he was thinking at this exact moment when Secret Service whisked him away and out of danger. That's where we begin. Here is the first part of my exclusive interview with Vice President JD Vance. Saturday night, Mr. Vice President, White House Correspondents' dinner. In all transparency, you and I spoke shortly before this interview, and I did confirm with you that this was the first time something like this for you had ever been experienced, had to be rushed off of the dais there at the front of the stage. Tell me a little bit about Saturday night. What was your experience?
Yeah, I think, Will, honestly, it was tougher for my wife, who was at home with the kids and started hearing things through, text messages and social media than it was for me. I really didn't know what was going on. Just to give you my perspective, I'm sitting up there on the dais with some journalists and obviously with the President of the United States a few seats to my right. And there's a lot of commotion. You kind of hear some loud noises. I had no idea what it was. And before I had any idea what was going on, I started seeing people sort of duck under their tables or respond to what was going on far in the back of the ballroom. And then an agent comes and whispers in my ear, basically says, "Sir, we have to leave." And you can you see the video, Will, where the agent sort of lifts me to my feet. And then I walk off stage and then go to my hold room and kind of wait and see what's going on. So, the first thing that happened that actually freaked me out a little bit, Will, is that we heard that an agent had been shot. And in the fog of war, I thought, oh, my God, this guy's actually seriously injured or maybe worse. And then we found out later, of course, that he was uninjured or not seriously injured. So as you learn this information, the thing that I really gained an appreciation for, Will, is what an amazing job the agents of the Secret Service do. You saw they went right to me. They went right to the President of the United States. They put their lives in harm's way. And if I could just say, Will, I've had a Secret Service detail for all of 2 years. I wouldn't say that I'm used to it. And there's an interesting way where you just kind of get used to it, right? They're the people who drive you to the White House, or they're the people who hang out with your kids when your kids are running around outside. And they kind of fade into the background of your life a little bit. And it's easy to forget that the reason they're there is for nights like what happened Saturday night. So I just feel very grateful to them and very grateful for what they do. And frankly, grateful to God that agent who was shot was not seriously hurt. It could have been a lot worse, but the law enforcement did a great job, Will, and we should all be grateful for that.
As are we. You mentioned to me that it was the first time you had to be rushed off stage. We're grateful that was a successful night in terms of the Secret Service and your protection, the president's protection, and we hope it's the last time that you ever have to be rushed off of a stage like that. Now, I just think it would take an incredible amount of self-imposed ignorance to not look around and see the way that our political environment is talking. And if I'll editorialize, it is largely coming, not exclusively, but largely coming from one direction. Certainly the bullets seem to be flying from one direction. You're now sort of in the direction of the fire. You're in the direction of the words and, unfortunately as well, the bullets. What would you say about everything, Mr. Vice President, from comedians who seem to make some of this rhetoric mainstream to fringe elements now that have now gone mainstream within the left? What would you say about the way we're hearing rhetoric and conversation in politics?
Well, I think you said it well, Will. I can't improve upon it, which is that political violence right now is coming not exclusively but largely from one side of the aisle. The president has now faced 3 serious attempts on his life in just the past year and a half. Of course, Butler, Pennsylvania. There was a situation at Mar-a-Lago that the media didn't really cover. And then, of course, there was the White House Correspondents Association dinner. So I think really it's incumbent upon everybody, but particularly those who are driving some of the narratives that Donald Trump, that Donald Trump has somehow invited this violence upon himself. that killing your political opponents is somehow justified. If you're engaged in that kind of rhetoric, you need to check yourself. You need to look yourself in the mirror and say that political disagreement is fine, but inviting violence upon your political opponents makes you part of the problem. Of course, you know, our mutual friend, Charlie Kirk, was gunned down not even a year ago. And immediately after that happened, you saw some mainstream voices on the left pivot not to the fact that Charlie was a good husband and father, not to the fact that he was going and taking his message to campuses and talking to people, both those who agreed with him, but also those who disagreed with him. You saw people come out and say that somehow it was justified, or that somehow Charlie Kirk believed this bad thing that you're not supposed to believe, which is implicitly justifying the person who murdered him. Why can't we all just say, disagree aggressively? That's part of the beauty of the American system if you've got to, but we don't accept political violence in our system. Yeah. And if you're part of the left wing in this country, you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, why is it that so many of the people who are firing guns at their political opponents agree with my perspective and listen to the same sources of information that I listen to? Maybe that suggests the left has got to tone down the rhetoric a little bit. I certainly hope they do, because, look, I love the president. Obviously, I love my family. We don't want this violence in our country. But the last thing I'll say, Will, is, look, this is fundamentally, you know, the president has such a good attitude about this, where he says the reason they come after him is because he's doing big things. And that's exactly right. They always go after, there's always some evil character who's going after people who are doing big things in our country. That doesn't mean you can't do big things. That just means you need courageous leaders at the top. And I know we've got a courageous leader in President Trump. It's amazing. But after all this, I've never seen the violence or the threat of violence even have a little bit of an effect on how he thinks about his job. It's the best thing maybe I could say about his character, which is saying quite a bit.
Mr. Vice President, there is a report out today, or it's from this week, rather. It's in The Atlantic, and it says that sources inside your office are telling The Atlantic that you've been expressing some real concerns about missile depletion through the war with Iran. They read as follows. In closed-door meetings, JD Vance has repeatedly questioned the Defense Department's depiction of the war in Iran and whether the Pentagon has understated what appears to be the drastic depletion of U.S. missile stockpiles. Are you concerned on this front? Are you concerned about our missile stockpiles?
Well, let me say two things about that report, Will. So first of all, most of these reports I ignore. This one I actually read because it ascribed views to me and things that I had allegedly said that I am just 100% certain that I have never said. And in particular, there's a lot in that story, Will, and you know how this game works, that is attributed to people who describe themselves as Vance advisors. You know, an advanced advisor could be a staff member that I see every single day. It could also be a random person off the street that I've talked to once at the White House Correspondents Association dinner. What I feel confident about, Will, is that nobody who actually knows what I think, nobody who's close to me was speaking to that reporter, because if they did, then it would have been a totally different story. Now, to answer your question, Will, of course I'm concerned about, you know, our readiness, because that's my job to be concerned. But I think that Pete Hegseth, our Department of War Secretary, I think General Cain, our Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they're doing an amazing job. But it's, of course, my job to ask these questions. It's, of course, my job to make sure that we're on top of every issue. And, of course, it's the president's job, too. And I think that both of us are very focused on that. But we've got a great military, a military that can do a lot, Will. So don't believe everything you read, especially in papers like The Atlantic.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.